Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be giving you a beginner's guide to the world of economy, and this is lesson 1. So this series of videos is for those of you who are interested in entering the ocean of economy but need some background information and a place to start. So in this video I'll be giving you a comprehensive overview of the fundamentals of economy. So any economy revolves around goods and services. And to create these goods and services, we require a producer. And the people that utilize these goods and services are consumers. So if we take the example of a certain product such as a smartphone, then in this case the smartphone is a good and it's being produced in some factory. And we are the end users or the consumers, and we purchase the smartphone. In an economy, there's an exchange of money from the consumer to the producer, where the consumer gives money and the producer exchanges the money for a good, such as a smartphone. So every economy is about spending goods and services. So producing goods and services and spending money to purchase these goods and services. And this brings us right to the definition of economy. And an economy is a system of goods and services and the money revolving around it. So we have goods and services which are being produced, and to utilize these goods and services we have to spend our own money for it. And an economy is completely centered around spending or making a transaction. The consumer obviously spends money to attain a good or product from the producer. And remember this fundamental principle that one person's spending is another person's income. So when the consumer spends money, he's essentially providing income to the producer. Obviously the consumer needs a source of income as well. So he finds a job with an employer, and the employer spends money on this person and gives them money, which is the consumer's income, and the consumer uses this money to purchase goods. So it's a cycle of spending and gaining income. And if this one person's spending increases, then another person's income increases. And the consumer would be able to purchase even more goods, and his spending would increase, and the producer's spending would increase. So the economy would in turn grow. So we can summarize this by saying that if we increase our spending, then our production would increase, and our incomes would also increase. So subsequently the economy would grow. And similarly, if spending decreases, then the production would decrease, and income would simultaneously decrease. So spending, income, and production are correlating to the condition of the economy. But this is just a basic model. The economy of a nation could then be summarized as the spendings of the people that comprise a nation. So everyone that exists in a country, their spendings and transactions that they initiate would be the economy of a nation. And the economy of a nation could be measured with an index or a factor known as gross domestic product. It's a tool used to measure the economy of a nation. And GDP or gross domestic product is the value of all final goods and services produced in a country within a year. But what are final goods and services, and how are they different from normal goods and services? As you know, according to the supply chain, goods do not exist on their own. They have to be derived from nature, from raw materials. So if you look at an example of a bag of cookies, a package of cookies, obviously the first stage of production starts from the wheat. So in the agricultural sector, wheat is produced, and from the wheat is transported to an industry where the wheat is manufactured into flour, and finally it's transferred to a different industry, a food processing industry, where the flour is turned into a bag of cookies. So the intermediate goods that go into making a bag of cookies are wheat and flour, and the final good that's produced, the final good that reaches the end user or the market, are the cookies. So wheat, flour go into making cookies. And you might be thinking, why does GDP only include the value of final goods and services? That's because the value of the wheat and flour, the value of the intermediate goods, is already included in the price of the cookies. So for representative purposes, if the cookies costed 100 rupees per bag, then this 100 rupees already includes 30 rupees for the wheat, 50 rupees for the flour, so that comes down to 80 rupees, and there's 20 rupees for the cookies, the final product. So that's why GDP only considers the value of the final goods, because the value or the price of the final goods is already taking into account the prices of the intermediate goods. So India's GDP is currently $2.6 trillion, but our goal is to become a $5 trillion economy in the near future. So how can we increase our GDP? As I mentioned earlier, if we increase our production, then subsequently our incomes would increase, and consequently there would be a generation of employment, because if we produce more goods, it requires more manpower, more human capital. So that creates more jobs, and it also increases our income. So ultimately our GDP as a country increases. And if there's an increase in income, people tend to spend more because they have more disposable income. And so the rise in demand for goods and services increases, because obviously if our income is 1 lakh per month, then we would only buy a certain amount of goods. But if our income is 2 lakhs per month, we would have more disposable income or more money to spend. So that means that we can purchase more goods, we can eat more, we can spend more, we can enjoy more services, we can enjoy a lavish life with more with more income. So if there's more income, then the demand for goods and services increases. And if there's a rise in demand for goods and services, then there's a rise in productivity of industries, which creates more employment. And if there's more employment, then the incomes increase, and then people spend more. So it's a continuous cycle. But this is only one model. This is called the productivity growth model. So if we increase the production of goods, then the income would increase and the GDP would increase. And this is a linear path because there's no obstacles or changes that we should be on the lookout for. And if production increases, then the GDP increases. This is called the productivity growth model. And this is highly beneficial for any developing or developed country in the long run. But it requires hard work and innovation, because any country can't sustain on production alone. We cannot have complacency, and we have to continuously innovate new products that could enhance the market. But there's other short-term models which are based on credit. But what is credit? This will be the topic of the next video. We'll be looking at credit, long-term credit models, short-term credit models, and how credit can transform an economy in the short run. So that concludes this introductory session to a beginner's guide to the world of economy. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great learning experience. And until the next video, this is Nishal Tube signing off. Peace.